Welcome back to another containerization crash course. I am Jeff Krakenberg, and now we are going to actually work with some Docker now that we've got it set up. So the first thing we did in the last video was we configured our virtual machine to be able to use the Docker Community Edition, which will let us do some cool stuff later. We added the permissions to our user so that we could run Docker without using sudo, and then we finished up by running hello world. Just going through here, it gives us some things that we can do to try and get a little bit further. So it has a message from them. That's neat. But if you want to try something more ambitious, it says to do docker run space it space ubuntu space bash. So this is saying, hey, have docker run the image of Ubuntu inside of a container and then give you a bash or a shell on it. And a lot of times when you're working with this stuff, you can just do exactly what it says. Ubuntu bash. Again, it'll be unable to find it locally, so it will download and install that, and then it will start running. And you'll see I am no longer Kali at Kali. I am now root at this random container ID. So we could run a couple of things in here. We could go ahead and do, I know who I am, but I could do who am I. I could do pwd to see where I'm at. I could do ls to see what's there. And I could even create stuff. So I could do like echo hello into hello.txt. And if I cat the hello.txt, there is that message inside of there, inside of the container, not our virtual machine. Containers are going to be logically separate areas inside of the space, with all of the binaries and libraries they need to do their specific thing. I'm going to exit out of that and then introduce docker ps as a way to see what is going on. Currently, I don't have anything, but docker ps-a will show you the information on containers that have been run. Right? And so in this case, I'll see that I did hello world about 3 minutes ago, and about a minute ago I did Ubuntu, and now I can kind of go a little bit further, and instead of getting a shell, what if we just want to do a thing? So what if I do docker run Ubuntu, and then we'll do, I wonder if it held on to that hello.txt. No such file or directory found. So Ubuntu, I had it, but it had this container ID, which is now gone, so that hello.txt isn't just in Ubuntu itself, it's somewhere else. And that is okay. If I wanted to have a container running in the background or continuously so that I could do other stuff and work with that container, I would need to use a slightly different run command, specifically -d for detached, and then I give it the image name, and then I give it bash, but this time with a comment, or a qualifier, whatever you want to call it, and I'm going to say echo hello, but then also tailf dev null. And what this here is saying, let me just double check my notes that I typed that incorrectly. There we go. It says, hey Docker, why don't you run Ubuntu in detached mode? And since you're going to run it in detached, why not give it the bash of give me hello, and then also tailf or follow the end. Tail looks at the end of a file. So follow the end of dev null. And in this case, it gives you this crazy looking string that you don't have to remember there, but if I do docker ps, I now have that container running. It is given the name Wizardly Chebyshev. That is a phenomenal name. I'm so sad that I'm never going to see that again after this. So Wizardly Chebyshev is up and running. I can go ahead and docker exec to interact with it more, but that's going to be saved for later videos. Now I am going to just do docker stop, and then I can do this a couple of ways. I can do it by name, I can do it by container ID, and just because I want that to live more in my brain, I am going to do docker stop space wizardly Chevy Chev. If you're following along, you would need to use the name the Docker gave your container. And in this case, it is going to do its best. Keynote about stopping containers in Docker, it is going to do it gracefully if it can. And if it can't do it gracefully, you might need to force it. But it did return the name, so that means we should be good to go. Let's docker ps one more time to see that we're empty. Docker ps space -a to see that it is here inside of our history, even though we're not doing it. There are some other ways that we could get a little bit deeper into this, so I'm going to just rerun that run command from earlier and then do docker ps Zealous Samet. That's not as good of a name as Wizardly Chevy Chev, but let's work with this Jealous Samet. If you want to kill just the last container that you have, we can use docker ps to see that again. We can pipe in the awk command and try and remember how to do awk, Jeff. You should have really taken notes on this part so that you don't struggle in your second video of the series. So we're going to tail N1. That looks right to me. And you'll see that that just gives me that container ID from docker ps. I said you could use the name or the container ID. So what if I take that now and wrap it in some curly braces, throw a $sign at the beginning to call it a command substitution or something like that, and then do docker stop. That's going to pull. Let's see if that works. And there we go. It called that specific one again. If I docker ps, it is gone. So that is going to be a quick way to start up some dynamic containers, or using containers directly or leaving them in the background to work with them more. That's more helpful when you're working with apps. We'll get into that later. And then how to stop them both directly and then a little bit programmatically with some command substitution. And as one final command for the video, docker space ps space -a is going to be your way to review your history of containers. That's it for now.